Good morning, everyone, and welcome at this webinar on the practical side of the pension agreement. We're still waiting for a few people in the audience, so we're going to wait for 2 minutes and then we're going to start the webinar. So please, 2 minutes of patience. Good morning, everyone, and welcome on this webinar on the practical side of the pension agreement. Let me start by thanking Maarten Racing of Montae Partners for organizing this webinar today with us. Montae Partners was formed out of a merger between Florijn and Montae this year, and they have a lot of experience from both sides already for years and years. They're a knowledge-intensive professional all-round employee benefits organization. And with 130 employees, both in the Netherlands and in the Caribbean, they can cover the whole country. They're both advising pension funds, national and international companies, works councils, but also individual employees. And we're very lucky today that Maarten Racing is willing to share his knowledge and expertise with us, because with 15 years of experience in the pension fields, he knows what he's talking about. He's both advising for completely new pension schemes, but also contract renewals, or if you have to adjust and transfer your pension scheme. His focus within Montae Partners is on internationally operating companies, also when the HR is outside of the Netherlands. And I know that we have few people from the audience that are outside of the Netherlands now. So I know that's important for you to know what's going on in the Netherlands. I also know from personal experience that Maarten is capable of explaining this more than complex topic in a very understandable way. And it's so important because there's always a lot at stake in pension. And like you know, most of you will know that in the Netherlands, there was a pension agreement concluded this summer. And in short, that means that most of the pension schemes will have to be adjusted between now and 2026. And I know that 2026 seems far away, But as of next year, there have to be decisions taken. And I know that from next year on, you have to make a few decisions on what to do, even though it starts in 2026. So what does that mean in practice for you as an employer? At what point do you have to speak to your stakeholders? And what are financial consequences? Well, these are all topics that Maarten will treat. There is also the possibility for you to ask your questions in the chat. If we do not have time to answer all your questions, Maarten will come back to you later on, and your question will be answered. The webinar is registered, and as of tomorrow, you will receive the link and the sheets, so you can also see the replay or share that with colleagues if you would like that. And last but not least important, if there is an audio or video problem, you can press the button no video or audio, refresh your screen, and then it will be okay. So I'm gonna leave you. I'm gonna wish you a lot of wisdom today, and I'm gonna give the floor to Maarten. Maarten, it's up to you.
Sylvie, thank you for your kind words. Yes, I'm Maarten, and I will tell you more about the pension agreement and actually the practical side of the pension agreement. A lot has been said and written about the pension agreement, but what does it mean exactly for you as an employer? What steps do you need to take to have a future-proof pension scheme? So at first, I've tried to describe the pension agreement in one slide. And here you see, this is what the pension agreement is all about. Of course, it's about pension, but it's also about contribution, compensation. It's a new system, but yeah, we have to adjust our pension schemes, like Sylvie said, for the upcoming years. But of course, if you see this slide, you don't know what to do. So let's start with a short intro video, and after that, I will explain further. Yes, this is a video that's telling you in short, in a nutshell, what the pension scheme and the pension agreement is all about. But of course, maybe you should think, why a new pension system? In the Netherlands, we have one of the best systems in the world. So why change a good system? Yeah, first of all, it's good to say that our current pension system is based or is established in the 50s. So at the time, the situation was, of course, different than at the moment we are now at. At this moment, for example, we have less workers, and it means the life expectancy in the Netherlands is increasing. And because of the increasing life expectancy, we have become, the group of retirement people have become bigger and bigger, and the group of employees that are paying the pensions have become smaller. So this is why we have less workers, and the group of paying the group that are paying the pension for the retirement group is becoming smaller. So this needs to change. Besides that, it's also good to know that our current system is mostly depending on the defined benefit system. That means the defined benefit system is that you are ensuring a guaranteed benefit. Due to the low market interest rates nowadays, this kind of pension system is really expensive to insure. So this is why a lot of employers have they switch their defined benefit system to a defined contribution system. So this is why the pension system needs adjustment, and to be able to have a pension in the future that is also payable for the employer. First, have a glimpse at the Dutch pension system now, how it's arranged. Of course, it's a three-pillar system. Maybe you've already know it. First pillar is the state pension. We all receive in the Netherlands our state pension. And it means that if you live in the Netherlands, and the only thing you have to do is to live in the Netherlands, is that you will receive a state pension. Second pillar, and this is what we are talking about today, is the employer pension scheme. In addition to the state pension, we all maybe have, or we have an employer pension scheme. And we can divide this second pillar into two groups. It means the first group, in the first group are the employers who are participating in the industry-wide pension fund. Over 80% in the Netherlands, the employers are participating in the industry-wide pension fund, like government companies, healthcare companies, and construction. So that kind of companies have to follow the rules that apply within the pension funds. So actually, the new pension system and the transition to a new pension system, the pension fund here is the transitional leader. They need to change the pensions, and you as an employer, if you have such a pension scheme, just have to follow what the pension system or what the pension fund will say. The other group, the second group, is over 20% of the employers in the Netherlands. This is the group we are talking about today, because in this group, the employers have their own pension scheme at an insurance company. It can be a defined benefit or a defined contribution pension scheme, but this pension scheme also needs to be adjusted because of the new pension agreement. So this is what we're talking about today, and this is what I want to explain to you. What impact does it have on this pension scheme, and which steps do you need to take to have a future-proof pension scheme? Third pillar, private, of course. It's also possible for you or for an employee to save in private, and it's depending on the fiscal scope. It's good to know that the new pension agreement has impact on all the three pillars. First of all, it's good to know the two types of employer pension scheme. We already talked a bit about it, the defined benefit pension scheme and a defined contribution pension scheme. On the left, you see a defined benefit. The emphasis is on the pension and the pension benefit. It's a guaranteed pension benefit. So that's why the apple it's showing for the payment you will receive on the retirement date is in blue. The emphasis is on the pension benefit. The premium is uncertain. The premium is depending on first of all the age of the employee, but also life expectancy and the market interest rates. Due to the low market interest rates, the premium has gone sky high. So in the last years, many companies have switched their own pension scheme from a defined benefit pension scheme to a defined contributions pension scheme. Defined contribution pension scheme means that you see there the euro sign in blue and the pension in white. That means the emphasis is on the premium. The premium investment is fixed, and that is the agreement you have with your employees. The premium is fixed, but the pension benefit is uncertain. You don't know now exactly what the pension benefit at retirement age will be. So this is why, because the premium are invested in funds, and of course you don't know now exactly what the pension benefit will be at retirement age. Then show a short timeline of the pension agreement, how it's been done. And in the top I've wrote down the process. First of all, the legislation process. Then it comes, of course, the decision-making process, implementation, and compensation period. This is just an example. It's good to know that in fall 2020, the pension agreement was concluded, but like the word said, it was an agreement. It's not legislation yet. So you can say this is legislation in concept. This pension agreement has led to definite legislation, and as far as it is now, it will be legislation in 1st of January 2022. So that is the moment when the law is in force. So that means from that moment on, the new law is in force, and from that moment on, you can really adjust your pension scheme to the new situation. So this is the moment where you can make your decision. What do I have to do with my pension scheme? But before that, to make the decisions is always good, of course, to have an inventory of all the goals and the wishes and the costs. What do you want to have to do with your pension scheme? What maximum cost do you want to have? What is the goal on the cost? What does it do with your employability? So to make the decision, you first have to do a good inventory. So it's already good now, or in 2021, to have made a good inventory to make the correct decisions afterwards. So if you've made the decisions, you agreed on a pension scheme, of course, then comes the implementation process. And the new pension schemes, at the latest, and the 1st of January 2026, then all pension schemes have to apply to the new legislation. After 2026, there has been agreed on a compensation period for 10 years. That means that in those 10 years, there is a higher fiscal scope. There's more possibility from tax legislation to compensate employees. And it will end in 2036. So from that moment on, compensation period will end. And actually, from that moment on, the new pension system is starting. Now, in a nutshell, what will change? First of all, there's a rise of the state pension age. Of course, nowadays, we already have an increasing state pension age. For example, my expected state pension age, I'm 40 years old, is 68 years and 9 months. But it used to be, before the pension agreement was concluded, it was 96 years and 3 months. So in the pension agreement was concluded that the state pension age will rise less rapidly than it used to be. So that's a good thing. The employees will receive their state pension more earlier. Second, rigorous change of pension schemes. Of course, defined benefit, like it's already told in the video, defined benefit will stop. It is not possible in the future anymore that you can include a defined benefit scheme for your employees. It will all be a defined contribution, but I will explain later. Again, in the pension agreement, there is more attention for the heavy professions. Of course, if you have a heavy profession, it is good that you have the opportunity to have a good retirement benefit, and that you don't have to work as long as maybe the state pension age is for this employee. And the last one, partner and orphan pension. Nowadays, the partner and orphan pension is, of course, the insurance for the partner and the children. In case of death for the employee, there will be a benefit for the partner and for the children. Nowadays, the insured amount for these two insurances is based on a very complex calculation. I'm happy that in the new pension agreement is written down that this complex calculation we got rid of. And in the new pension system, there will be a partner pension insured based on the salary. 50% of the salary you can insure as a maximum partner pension. So it's quite more easier to understand. And nowadays it is possible for an older employee of 50-year-old maybe, that with a salary of 80K, that partner pension insurance is, for example, 10K a year. In the new system, it will be 50% of 80K, and it means that the partner pension insurance is 40K. So it's a big plus for this employee. Now, in the pension agreement, the major shift is, of course, in the second pillar, in the employer pension scheme. It means defined contribution. That is the future, and that is the pension schemes if you want to start now a pension scheme, this is the scheme you go for. Defined benefit scheme is no longer possible. It is possible in a defined contribution scheme that is only based on a flat premium. Come to that later. But it's good to know that nowadays it is often many defined contribution pension schemes are based on a graduated scale. It means increasing premiums. The older the employee gets, the higher the premium investment will be. This system is not possible anymore. We go over to a flat rate premium. That means the same premium for every employee, not looking at age. And the tax maximum is 33% of the pension base. That is the tax maximum of the flat rate premium. Besides that, of course, it has impact for all employees, and it's good to know, especially if you have a defined benefit system and IFRS issues. Defined contribution don't have these IFRS issues, so it has a possible impact on this. And of course, it can have possible impact on your yearly pension costs. But also, if you are shifting in contributions, it does mean something for your employability. For example, if you now pay a younger employee a certain premium and it will be higher at a higher level in the new scheme, of course, it is maybe difficult for you to hire this new young employee because of the increasing cost in the future. So these are things you have to think about when creating a new pension scheme. What is the impact for turning over to another contribution? So it's important to now already have an inventory of the possibilities, and from there on, make your decisions for the future. To make it more practical, I've made an example. An example for employer A. We have 150 employees having this defined contribution pension scheme. Renewal date of the contract at the insurance company is the 1st of January 2023. And the scheme that is applicable is a graduated scale with the increasing premium level. You see the young employees will pay 7.7% of the pension base and the older employee up to 30%. This is a scheme you can consider as being market practice. A lot of companies in the Netherlands have this pension scheme. Maybe with or without an employee contribution, but this pension scheme, this is very normal to have in the Netherlands. If you see this in this example, actually, to be able to have a future-proof pension scheme, it is good to know that you have 3 options. Because this pension scheme, of course, you can't continue with this pension scheme in the Netherlands or in the future, and you have 3 options. Option 1 is the current employee group, they're now working at your company, they stay in the current scheme, and the new hires after 2022 will go to a flat rate. So that means actually 2 pension schemes. Come to that back later. The second one is total employee group go to a flat rate. So you got rid of the graduated scale and everybody goes to the flat rate premium. Third one, actually total employee group go to the flat rate, but with compensation. You can see already for the older employees that the flat rate premium is lower than the graduated scale. Thus you need to compensate these employees. Now, if you look at the first option, current employees keep the current scheme and the new employees go to a flat rate. You see the effects. There are, of course, you have 2 pension schemes in this situation. It brings a lot of extra administrative burden with this because 2 pension schemes, of course, is difficult to manage. But besides that, you have created, if you want to implement this, not equal employment conditions for all employees. If the younger employees are receiving more, then no new hires will receive a higher pension benefit than the current employee group. So I can imagine a 25-year-old employee who works for a couple of years at your company receives a 10% pension premium. You go to a flat rate, for example, at the level of 15%. The new hire that will enter the company will receive 15%. So maybe there will be some confusion under the employee group. Hey, this other employee is receiving a better pension scheme than me. So, of course, there can be a discussion going on about this. And the opposite around the older employee group. The current employees will receive the old higher pension premiums, and the new hires, the new older employees, the senior employees, will receive 15%. So there's a difference at this as well. So these are the effects. Of course, this is possible to implement, but yeah, it's of course it has its difficulties if you want to implement this scheme. If you look at the option 2, all to flat rate, no compensation. Yeah, actually, this is the pension. This is the pension scheme. This is the future. Huh? If you have no pension scheme at all, and you want to start a pension scheme, this is the contribution you have to go for, because this is the flat rate. Not looking at age, everybody the same premium, equal employment conditions for all the employees. But again, if you look at the current market practice, the graduated scale, especially for the younger employees, they're becoming more expensive. So if you now go for a flat rate of 15%, and in the current market practice conditions, the flat rate is about, the rate is 7%, you see a double of pension costs. So it means that if you hire a new employee with using this percentage, it means maybe you have to lower their salary to be able to pay this employee. So it has to do something, of course, with your total budget, your total financial budget. Not only looking at the pension cost, but also look, of course, to have a good look at the salary in total. What do you want to have? What do you want to spend on the total cost of the employee group? Of course, that is good to know. That budget in mind, and with that budget in mind, you can set the premium level because it has impact. Of course, if you want to change this. Or if you want to change the pension scheme to a flat rate with no compensation, yeah, it's not likely that it can be used, because a lot of CLAs and Works Council and individual labor agreement says the pension agreement is part of our employment contract. So if you want to change your pension agreement and is not in the favor of the employees, you need the employee consent. The employees need to, if there is individual labor agreement, the employee needs to agree on this change. And for example, the CLA needs to agree on the change of the pension scheme. So no compensation is not likely that you can introduce this pension scheme without doing any compensation. So option 3 is all to flat rate with compensation. And there you see where the compensation will be. Young employees beneath 35 years old have a direct increase of premium. So they're becoming more expensive. The older employees have a direct decrease of premium. Of course, that means that the pension benefit will go down, and you need to compensate these employees. And you see there on the right compensation for the employees 45, 50 and older. They need to have compensation to have an equal pension scheme, equal employment condition as they nowadays have already. So you need to compensate these employees. If you look at the effects, yes, I see a question, Sylvie.
I have a question myself, so I think I'm going to use it. In the new scheme of the flat rate, is there a minimum and a maximum there that an employer has to adapt? Because as an employer, you could say maybe, I don't know, we take a minimum of 5%, or if you're a good employer, you take, I don't know, 20% for everyone. Is that mentioned or not at all?
Yeah, good question. There is a max of 33% flat rate. So this is the tax maximum according to the new legislation. There is no minimum. Of course, you can think for yourself if you want to invest 2% or 1% of the pension base as a pension premium. Yeah, you can ask yourself, is it even wise to start a pension scheme at all? But yeah, it's only taxed maximum. It's 33%. So that's good to know. And it's a really high level, of course. If you see here the graduated scale going up to 30%, that is in the market practice level. Yeah, it's already 30%. So if tax maximum, if you want to start a pension scheme at a level of 33%, it's a really good but really expensive pension scheme. But that is the maximum possible. So not looking at age, 33% for everybody. Yeah. If we look at the effects, if we look at the effect of, for example, for the younger employees, yeah, you see they're becoming more expensive. The pro is, of course, they're easier to attract. We have a good pension scheme. You can say our scheme is really good, so please come work with us. On the other side, maybe you have to bit lower their salary because of this pension scheme being a bit more expensive. But of course, it's always good not only to have focus on the salary. I understand employees always have first focus on their salary, but it's also good for you as an employer to tell about this pension scheme. What is it all about, and what is the level this pension scheme is at? So communication, employee communication is key here. You have to agree, or you have to explain the pension scheme to the employee, even in the phase that you are hiring a new employee. And of course, if there are some difficulties in explaining the pension scheme, we can help, no problem. If you look at the older employees, the older new employees are less expensive. So that's the opposite. Maybe it's harder to attract the new older employees, because these employees, these senior employees, maybe having now a pension scheme with a graduated skill and with that high pension premiums at their current employer. So there is no actual benefit for this employee to go to work for your company, maybe, because of having this flat rate premium. So maybe it's, of course, harder to attract them, and that's why maybe you have to give them a higher salary to attract these senior employees. So it's, in effect, positive or negative, but it's really good to see these impacts, these effects, if you are changing the pension scheme. You can say flat rate, okay, now we have a future-proof pension scheme, but it means more than only have a future-proof pension scheme. It has to do something with your employability as an employer. How do you want to attract people? Do you want to attract young people, senior people? So that are questions are very, very important to infantry before you go and change your pension scheme. Now, if you have the three options put in one graph, and I think, yeah, maybe it's a bit difficult to see, but of course, the third one, auto flat rate with compensation for the current participations, means, of course, that in the first years, the pension costs will be higher than the current pension costs. Of course, this is because the flat rate is becoming at a higher level, is set at a higher level, and you have to compensate these employees, the older employees, because of the decreasing premiums. It's always good, the first year's higher cost, but it's always good to have made some assumptions and go for a period, maybe for 10 or 15 years, and look for in this period, okay, what do I have to pay for the current pension scheme? I want to switch to a new pension scheme, but I still like to have a budget neutral pension scheme in those 10 years. So maybe it is possible that in the first years, the pension cost will increase. But after a couple of years, new hires come, depending on staff change. So if new hires come and the senior employees will leave the company, of course, this will do something with the flat rate and with your total pension costs. So it's always good to make an impact analysis. Okay, what does it mean? Taking in account some assumptions. What does it mean in the long term? 10, 15 years. How do I want to have this arranged within my company? The total pension cost. That is important to know. How do you want to arrange this? Now, that is the defined contribution pension scheme. Then an example with the employer with a defined benefit pension scheme. Like we said, defined benefit is no longer possible. If you nowadays have a defined benefit pension scheme, it is good to know that this scheme is not possible in the future, and you have two options. You can continue your current DB pension scheme. You can switch to a DC pension scheme with a flat rate at the latest at 1st of January 2026. So actually you go with a big bang, defined benefit will stop. You go at once to a defined contribution system. We're using a flat rate. So it means a lot. Second option is you could switch to a defined benefit to a defined contribution scheme with a graduated skill before the 1st of January 2022. So before the new legislations will start, you still have the opportunity to go to a graduated skill with a defined contribution pension scheme. So this is more leading to a comparable pension benefit. The new graduated skill in defined contribution is more comparable with the current defined benefit scheme. The impact is less, so compensation will be less in this situation. But you still need to compensate. The last years, I've guided many employers in this transition from a defined benefit to a defined contribution pension scheme. And often some compensation is needed when you go from a guaranteed pension benefit to a defined contribution benefit based on funds. Compensation is needed. If you look at the first option, continue the current defined benefit scheme and switch to a flat rate, you can say you go with a big bang. It means the guarantees and employees are used to have a guaranteed benefit. It's very expensive, of course. Like I said, due to the low market interest rates, it's very expensive to ensure this benefit. So you will keep this high cost. If you will continue for the upcoming years until 2026, this high cost will be continue to this year. So maybe it's quite expensive scenario. That's the first, because you have long-term cost of this defined benefit. And on the other hand, if you switch at once to a defined contribution pension scheme with a flat rate, you have to compensate in 2026 because the pension benefit, the retirement benefit they are expected to have will be lower, probably lower, especially for the older people. So you have to compensate those employees. Second one, switch to a defined benefit to a defined contribution scheme with a graduated skill before the 1st of January 2022. There's less impact for the current employee group because it means they still can use that increasing premium scale. But again, if you do this, you still know I still need to have a second defined benefit scheme because the new hires, they all have to go to the flat rate premium. So again, in this option as well, you have two pension schemes, and it's made a really administrative, a really complex admin to manage two pension schemes. So that problem still is there in this situation. Now, so far the examples, I think it's good to have a look at the steps to be taken. I've wrote down a roadmap. And it's good to have a look at this roadmap to have you more informed about what can you expect, what steps are need to take for having a future-proof pension scheme. At first, of course, like I said, the communication to the employees is key. Not only inform the employees when the decision is made, but inform the employees now, right away, because this has impact not only for you as an employer, but of course for the employees. The pension scheme is changing. So it's always good, I think, to say at this moment, okay, there is a pension agreement concluded. It has impact on our pension scheme. I'm working on it. We are making it a project and we're looking for the best suitable option for us as an employer and you as an employee. Tell them about this project, that you start working on it, and you have to inform them along the way. But only inform them more concrete into details when the actually decision is being made. So at that moment on, it is good to inform them, okay, now we have made a decision, this is the new pension scheme, and this is the impact that it has on your personal situation. So that's why it's good to start, of course, with an impact analysis. Get insight on the budget in different scenarios and elements. Nowadays, you have a certain budget, you have a certain pension scheme, but it's good to make some assumptions for the future, increasing, decreasing headcount of the employees. And with these assumptions, you can make an impact analysis. Okay, what does it mean for us when we change to a new system? And what impact does it have to our budget? So you have to set your basic goals. What will be the maximum costs? And what is the importance of our employability? What do I like to hire? Do I need more young people? Do I like to hire more seniors? Of course, this has impact on your new pension scheme. So we can calculate with these assumptions. We can calculate we can make a long-term calculation. So you can see maybe in the first years you have higher costs, but in the following years this cost will decrease. and come to the same budget as you now have in your current pension scheme. It's always good, of course, to have a project group. First of all, if you have a company with more than 50 employees, it's mandatory to have a works council. So, of course, you and the management of the company and the works council work together to in this project. I think pension, is complex, so it's good to upgrade the knowledge level of the project group. Of course, there are different courses for this to upgrade the knowledge of the pension group to be able to make the right decisions for the future. Then, if you have made an impact analysis, you set your goals, and you work in the project group, determine the future pension scheme. The decision-making process is based on the impact analysis, the goals, and the negotiations you have with your stakeholders. Employee communication, the employee consent is needed if no CLA is applicable. If a CLA is applicable, the consent of the CLA is there, and the employees have to follow the CLA. I think it's always good to show what the impact of this transition means for the individual employee. Of course, that will be the first question of the employee. Okay, new pension scheme, difficult for me to understand, but what does it mean with my pension? Will it be higher? Will it be lower? What impact does it have on my situation? So it's always good, in my experience, to calculate it in individual calculations, to show them, okay, this is what's your current pension scheme, or this is your current pension scheme, and this will be the new pension benefit according to our new pension scheme, and explain how it works. It's really, really important, of course, that they know the possibilities in the new pension scheme, because they have a lot of more options in the new defined contribution pension scheme comparing to, for example, a defined benefit pension scheme. They can invest more. They have to make choices. Do I want to have high risk funds, low risk funds in a defined contribution pension scheme? It's important that they know these risks and make the right choices. So employee communication is key here. To the end, it was in the video. We see it, the new transition to a new pension scheme as a train. We call it the pension agreement express, and we provide our clients with a knowledge platform, the suitcase where all 4 teams are included. And the suitcase, this is filled with information that you need to make the right decisions and go with this along the way. And the final destination is, of course, 2026 to have your pension scheme according to the new legislation. So in a nutshell, the pension agreement and now what to do. It's time to take action. You have to make an inventory of your wishes and make sure you know your choices before you can make a decision, and make sure you are well informed to take the necessary steps. Thank you. And now I will give the word to Sylvie.
Thank you very much, Maarten, for this insight. I know it's so complex, and I think it's so good that you explained this so well to us, and also with the consequences for the employees, because we all know that touching on salary and also on secondary benefits to employees, it is such a very sensitive topic. So it's so important to be able to explain to your employees what the consequence is, but also to have time to prepare this. So that's why you told me already a few months ago that we have to be careful that 2026 is not that we have 6 years of time to wait and change our pension scheme, but that we really have to start now, and that decisions have to be taken next year. So thank you very much, Maarten. Thank you very much to the audience for participating today. I think you have a lot to think about. If you need any assistance and any help from Maarten to make the right decisions, please do not hesitate to contact him. I know, like I said, from experience, that he can explain what you need and how to do it in a very understandable way. It's very important. Before you finish, before you leave the webinar, you will see an evaluation form. It would be great if you can fill it out, because we can also learn from that. So please fill out the evaluation form. You can wait for the replay. It will be sent to you tomorrow with the sheets. So you will also take time to rethink and to re-listen to it to understand. And like I said, do not hesitate to contact Maarten for any assistance for your company, for your employees' pension scheme. Thank you very much, and I hope to see you soon. Have a nice day. Bye.